The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 811. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. Visit our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits. Well, hello, friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host, Sheena Yap Chan, and today it's a very special edition. We actually have an Asian Women Who Boss Up series that we are creating. It's going to be a book that's coming out highlighting Asian women about their stories of how they're able to forge their own path and thrive. And this is something that I'm truly passionate about because it's something that's definitely needed out there so we can inspire other Asian women to go out there and forge their own path as well. And today I have an amazing guest. She's an entrepreneur and her name is Annie Hardock. Annie, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to the listeners.
Great. Thank you, Sheena, for inviting me on this podcast. I'm honored to be here. I am one of the co-authors of the Asian Women Who Boss Up book that's upcoming. I also had co-authored another book. So I'm also an author and a speaker. And also I have been an entrepreneur for over 30 years. And right now I am running a children learning center, which I have pivoted since COVID, the pandemic, and now serving online.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And Annie, what's your cultural background?
I was born and raised in Hong Kong. I was born in the early 60s. So because it's important because of the cultural difference back in those days. That's why I wanted the audience to know when I mention those experiences, they can relate. And I was born and raised there until I finished the high school, which at that time it was in following the British system because it was British. And then I came to Canada. So I've been in Canada for 40 years. Since 1980. So I know both culture well, the East and the West. And so I got the best of both worlds. So my life experience been always taken the best of the Eastern world and the best of the Western world and the fusion. That's me. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And Annie, how does the model minority myth hurt Asian women as a whole?
I think it's the prejudgment that we're facing. People already have their image of what Chinese women may be behaving. And they have that prejudgment, which will sometimes limit our freedom to express ourselves even. Because it becomes like not very normal. Then it's like breaking their image of what they think we should be or behave.
Totally. I mean, because of that, we suffer so much. They think Asian women are just this one type of person, which is totally wrong. Actually, we have different talents, different strengths, different weaknesses. And the more we can showcase that, the more we can, people can realize that, we're not quiet, submissive, and obedient. We're way more than that. So thanks for sharing that. And why is creating a stronger representation of Asian women important for you?
To me, it's about leadership. Just because I was born and raised in a family of 11, and my dad was actually 15 years older than me. You can imagine, right, that gap. And then my grandmother, from my father's side, she had banged feet. So she has tiny little feet. My grandmother has banged feet that she has maybe just a little over 3 inches for her. So it's really difficult to make big steps. You just walk tiny step at a time, and she wasn't able to really go out. Yeah, to me, that's what's suppressive, what they see women's image, right? And in that generation, even my dad and my grandparents, it's the boys, it's the important part of the family, and they didn't do any chore, house chores. Actually, my grandmother saying boys don't do house chores, otherwise they'll be poor for the rest of their life. So they don't, right? They never trained that way. So at a very young age, I already resented that. I just thought that's not fair, right? Why do you put those images? But then I also got the privilege in that I was the youngest of I have 8 other siblings. I was number 9. So I did get the privilege in that I didn't really got trained to do lots of the house chores because I have lots of sisters to do that. But the thing is I feel there's a boxed in to some kind of image of how I should behave. So I think I only got myself out of that box when I started high school in a new environment that becomes more free, because I guess at that age, in a teenager, I start to have that my own thinking and what I want to become.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. It's so true, right? Asian cultures, they always favor the boys over the girls. And how does it feel being that representation for so many Asian women in the world?
For me, I don't see myself like being different. Like, I think representation is how the others see you. Like, I don't necessarily go out and say, I'm now representing what the Chinese women and what they're supposed to be. Like, that's the problem is like, we're having these icon or whatever, but it's up to other people. I'm not trying to create an image that I'm representing the Asian women. But what I do encounter like all these different, like I want to tell you one, I really resented when I was so little. It's back then, like now I bring you back to in the 60s, right? So my uncle, he has two wives. Like, so when we go to a banquet or anything, it's like one on each side. And that was like a culture. Like I even have classmate. She said, "Oh yeah, like she has two moms and they're all living in the same house." To me, I don't want to be the second. So it took a while, like because I find it devalue what the woman's quality when you have them, right? Because like one is like that prejudgment that like boys is better, and second is the value. I think how you self-love yourself is because you value yourself, right? But if people around you don't give you that confirmation that you are being valued, right? Because if the culture is doing that way, you don't feel that you are being valued. And that's why I think when women don't have that self-confidence is they don't see the value because others don't see the value. So yeah, but I do build my own confidence. I think I was pretty self-confident like when I was a kid. I think I observed a lot when I was a kid, like observing different people's behavior and things. I always pick and choose. So even as simple as learning how to write letters, like the Chinese character or the English like scripting. So I was still in elementary. I would choose, say, oh, that teacher, like, oh, I love the letter A, how she wrote it. And then I adopt it. So it's the same when I come to Canada and I pick the culture. What is the best, right? And I pick that and I become my own. That's a personal growth for me.
Thanks for sharing that. And, it's so true. As Asian women, we don't value ourselves because of our cultural upbringing and family upbringing. And the more we can learn to love ourselves and see how much we're worth, we can go out there and push forward. And, share one reason as to why every Asian woman needs to read this book.
I encourage all the readers to really find that strength of how these women in this Asian women who boss up, what's their journey and how they get to where they are today. I used to say, oh, if I didn't experience it, I wouldn't know, right? I just say, someone told me, you don't have to lose an arm to feel pain. So just learn it. Then your path may be a little smoother. That's what we hope for. We hope the audience don't have to go through those difficult paths.
Thanks for sharing that. And what can readers gain from reading your story?
Actually, my story, I have gone through different phases in my life. And because of I would say, my family, first of all, very unique is that we have multi-faith. We have 9 something like my dad's like Taoist, and then I have brother that's a Buddhist, and then I have a Catholic nun, like a sister who's been a nun for over 40 years, and so a few of them are Catholic, and then I have a Christian brother, and like Buddhist and Taoist, and then for myself, I learned all of them. I'm very spiritual in the sense that I take all of them and see what's the best for me. And I actually inspired to write spiritually inspired poems. So that's one scenario of how I grew up, right? And then secondly, I lived in Canada for 40 years and also having that Chinese cultural background. And I lived in a small town, just about 10,000 in population. And it's very, I would say, majority are Caucasian. And when I moved into the town, there were about maybe a handful of Chinese. So I lived through that and also started business without knowing anyone, and in a community that doesn't really have Asian women. And I was able to establish a networking group. And now this is the 23rd year anniversary, right? And I also lead like a men and women. It's not just a women's group. So that's my journey. I just experienced a lot of different culture and worked through the challenges.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And Annie, can you share one boss up tip to the listeners?
Well, self-love is the most important part. Love yourself, and then you'll be able to love others. And I raised my son as a single parent since he was 4 years old. And that's how I learned unconditional love, because I didn't know what it means, actually, until you experienced it.
Thanks for sharing that. And can you share where they can pre-order the physical copy of the book?
It will be on my website called anniesvoice.com. And you can pre-order there and follow me on Facebook and Instagram. I have Annie's Voice Connect, because I already published another co-authored book just a year ago. And I would have all those books on there.
Thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Annie, you can also head on over to the taoofselfconfidence.com and search for her name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else that we talked about. And I really just want to thank Annie today for taking the time to share her story. And hopefully you'll be able to get a copy of the book. And Annie, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Not a problem. It's really great having you on the show. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing Asian woman who boss up an author who's going to share a little bit about what they do. And tune in for the next episode. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of The Tao of Self-Confidence. You can order your copy of Asian Women Who Boss Up book by visiting our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits.